Okay, these are the video annotations for Bowen Secondary School mid-year exam 2019. Okay, so I'm going to go through the questions first. Question demands, as well as what you should look out for before I look through the sources. Okay, so the very first question: how far would President Truman in source A agree with North Korean foreign minister in source B about Korean War? Okay, so keyword here: agree. And how far, right? So you know from the word agree, it's a comparison question. Alright, so in how far you need both a similarity and a difference. Okay, and your BOC needs to be focused on an aspect of the Korean War. Okay, so focus of BOCs. Okay, next question: study source C. Why was this cartoon drawn? So why? You know it's a purpose question. You need your commas. Right? Next, how useful is source D as evidence that China was not to be blamed for the Korean War? Explain your answer. Okay, you know this is a utility question. Alright, so the first paragraph, alright, useful or not useful based on content. Alright, your APE. So you tell me why this source is useful or not useful as evidence that China was not to be blamed. Alright, content, APE, so either not useful because of the source is limited in terms of its content. Okay, second paragraph, useful, not useful. Okay, reliability. Okay, based on cross-reference. Alright, so pick another source. Alright, if it's different, if there's a difference with source D, means that it's not supported, means that it's unreliable, therefore not useful, and vice versa. Okay, paragraph 3, useful or not useful based on higher levels of reliability. Okay, so again you have bias, purpose, enhance reliability. Okay. Study source E. Are you surprised by source E? Please don't do this. We have not taught you guys surprise in history. Alright, last question. This is an assertion question. Alright, the Korean War was a proxy war. How far do the sources support this view? Okay, so proxy war, let's define it now. Proxy war, we know it's a conflict between two states on behalf of external actors. Okay, and in the context of the Cold War, alright, it's about US or USSR. Alright, was the Korean War fought on behalf of US or USSR, or was it really just a civil war, a domestic war? Okay, so how do we decide this? Okay, think about the trigger. Alright, what actually triggered the war? Think about the goals of each of the actors. Think about ideology. Alright, think about actions taken. And think about also resources provided. Alright, so when you link back to this question, you must explain in terms of all of these ideas. Alright, whichever is applicable. Okay, so whether or not it was US or USSR, or was it North Korea versus South Korea. Okay, alright, okay. Now we go to the source. Okay, so background information. I will not really go through this, right? You can read through this yourself. Background information. Alright, when you read the question, was the Korean War a civil war or proxy war? And you can also in this sentence, internal division between the two sides of Korea Okay, so meaning North Korea and South Korea qualified as a civil war. So we have a definition of a civil war as well. Okay, and we know what a proxy war is. Okay, so your BI is meant to help you. Alright. Moving on. Okay, I'm gonna annotate source A first. You should have done your own annotation by yourself. Alright, so what you're doing here is really just listening to me going through and just topping up if there's anything that you have missed out. Alright, checking your annotations against my annotations. Alright. Okay, so as we know, when we annotate, right, we pick out difficult words. We try and make sense of the source. Okay, we highlight key terms. Okay, and we also answer the issue question. In this case, the issue question or the assertion question. In this case, the assertion question is about whether or not the Korean War was a proxy war. Okay, so let's begin. From a statement issued by President Truman, we know USA's. This is going to be all from USA's perspective, 1950, when the war already started. Okay, so in Korea, the government forces were attacked by invading forces from North Korea. Okay, so already this tells me that it was most likely a civil war, right? Korean War was a civil war because of the trigger. Alright, the trigger was North Korea. The UN Security Council called invading forces to cease hostilities and withdraw, blah blah blah. Okay, the Security Council called on all members of the United Nations to give assistance. I have ordered US Air and Sea Forces, UN Security Council. So based on this, okay, you can say that it's a proxy war due to the military aid provided by external actors, right, outside of North Korea and South Korea. Okay, so this is a source that can do both. All right, it can go either side. All right, depending on how you want to argue and which evidence you pick up. Okay. Okay, source B now. All right. Adapted extract from a statement sent by the North Koreans, so we know this is going to be the POV. Alright, very likely they're going to blame someone else. Okay, and if we look at the source itself as well, American intervention, civil war started by American imperialists and their running dogs, headed by Syngman Rhee, have inflicted tremendous calamities and hardships upon the Korean people, for which the American government is solely responsible. Okay, very, very clearly, okay, in the first line alone, he is blaming America. America blamed, alright? And so he's trying to say that because of this American intervention, this makes it a proxy war. Okay, we are answering the assertion question. Okay, then we continue, alright? Such encouragement and aid spurred the Syngman clique to start a civil war, alright, in Korea, right? So here he's blaming Syngman Rhee for invading North Korea. Alright, and then he's saying that Syngman Rhee clique had scheduled the attack on North Korea for mid-June in 1950. So here, because he's blaming South Korea, alright, preemptive plans, okay, this makes it a civil war. Alright, so again, this is a question that can do both. Alright, depending on what evidence you choose. Okay, this is a question on a whole. It both supports and the idea that Korean War was a civil war, and also Korean War is a proxy war. Okay, moving on to the next source. Okay, source C, a British cartoon from 1950 commenting on the USSR involvement in the Korean War. Okay, British cartoon. We know Western democracy, likely to support USA lah. Okay, likely to support the capitalists, likely to support the democracy. Okay, commenting on USSR's involvement in the Korean War. Okay, really, if you have not annotated this source by yourself, really please just stop, pause this video and try it for yourself before you listen to me. Okay, you must try this for yourself. Okay, I'm continuing. Okay, so when we look at a source like this, when we look at a political cartoon like this, right, it's always about highlighting highlighting, making observations, taking stock of our observations. Okay, so let's see, what do we see? Okay, so we start from the left side of this cartoon. Tanks greet Stalin for peaceful tanks. Okay, very clearly sarcasm, right? Because peaceful and tanks, okay, that's a bit of an oxymoron, right? They contradict each other. How are tanks peaceful? Okay, so he's and also blaming Stalin for providing equipment. Okay, but right now we don't know what providing equipment to who, right? We can only guess it's probably to North Korea, right? Based on our contextual knowledge. Okay, what else do we see? We see upside down Soviet version of truth. Okay, and truth is represented by this lady who's standing upside down. Okay, so it seems like, and also she is, if you look at her ankles, she's bound. She's also trapped. Okay, so if you think about what the Soviet version of truth is, right? Is it that they are blaming someone? Is it that USSR has been blaming someone other than themselves? Okay, moving on. All right, you have these figures here. Ivestia, Pravda. Okay, I'm not sure whether any of you guys know, but just some information as well. Pravda and Ivestia. All right, these are all names of Soviet newspapers. Okay, so these newspapers, they're saying things like South Korea kicked North Korea on the boot with the seat of its pants. Why won't the Western democracies and be peaceful while we do them in? Okay, so what the British cartoon is saying is that these Soviet newspapers are blaming South Korea plus USA, I would even say UN, right? These are the Western democracies, South Korea. Okay, so if we put everything together, oh, and we also see Stalin here, and we also see, I would say Mao Zedong. Okay, question mark. I think it's Mao Zedong at least. Okay. Okay, so if we put everything together, right? There's the use of sarcasm here, blaming Stalin for providing equipment to North Korea. We have the upside down Soviet version of truth. We have Soviet newspapers who are blaming South Korea and USA or UN for the war. Right? Very likely, what the British cartoon is saying is that USSR was involved in the war, right? Was definitely involved in the war. Okay? And by this alone, we know that, right, this qualifies it as a proxy war. Okay? But USSR was trying to hide their involvement. They're trying to blame someone else for their involvement in the war. Okay? Alright? Okay, if you still don't understand the source, please go to your teachers. Next. Source D, alright, an adapted interview with a member of the People's Volunteers who was among the Chinese soldiers crossing the Yalu River. Chinese soldiers, we know probably China's perspective. Okay? Or even the communist perspective. Okay, it was very clear what we're doing. We believe that Americans wanted to attack China by crossing the 38th parallel. They were already nearing the Yalu River. Okay, there was no way that the Chinese who had suffered the indignity of imperialism meaning being occupied, right? So empire building, right? So for China, empire building means China being occupied. Okay, and so he says Americans wanted to attack China by crossing the 38th parallel. They were already nearing the Yalu River. So here they are saying the trigger for Chinese to be involved is because of USA. Okay, so So then it goes on to say anti-American pro-Korean war attacked the Americans. Okay, so very clearly this source is saying that the Korean War was a proxy war. Okay, because of the involvement of Americans, but also China as well. Okay, last source. Okay, Nikita Khrushchev. We know Khrushchev, next leader of USSR after Stalin. Okay, he's writing his memoirs. Usually memoirs are published after the leaders have left office. So he's trying to justify his policies. Okay, ensure a good legacy. Okay, so he says Kim came to Moscow when he had worked everything out. Stalin had his doubts, right? He worried that Americans would jump in, right? And Kim Il-sung was sure it could be won swiftly, then intervention by the USA could be avoided. I must stress, it wasn't Stalin's idea, but Kim Il-sung's idea. Okay, Stalin, of course, didn't try to dissuade, so dissuade meaning didn't try to convince him of otherwise. Mao Zedong approved Kim Il-sung's suggestion and put forward the opinion that USA would not intervene since the war would be an internal matter which the Korean people would decide for themselves. Okay, so overall, right, even though there are these external actors like Stalin, like Mao Zedong, China, right? What the source is actually saying is that, and it's continuous, right? Because he repeats this multiple times. It wasn't Stalin's idea, it was Kim Il-sung's idea, right? And the war would be an internal matter. So because of these two pieces of evidence, and I mean the fact also is that Stalin had his doubts, right? This makes it a civil war in which, right, Kim was very motivated. Okay, Kim's motivation, okay, to begin the Korean War for his own reason. Okay, alright, so because of this source would support the idea that this is a civil war. Alright, okay, that's all. If you have any more questions, please ask me. Please complete this as your holiday homework.